All right, welcome back to part two of the call sheet. I am absolutely privileged to have with me in this segment the head coach of the Cleveland Browns, two-time NFL Coach of the Year, Kevin Stefanski. Coach, thank you so much for taking the time to do this.
Yeah, happy to be here with you.
Yeah, it's been an absolute pleasure. Coach has been on vacation. I've had an opportunity to work with him a little bit over the last week. You were out yesterday with some of our guys, and I guess as I'm watching you, I thought to myself, hey, here's a guy who's worked with Brett Favre, Kirk Cousins, Deshaun Watson, and now he's looking at 15, 16, 17-year-old high school kids. Is the game any different for you mentally when you're watching high school kids versus pros?
Well, like you said, it's a game, and that is the fun part. And I'd remind our players all the time is they get to play a game for a living. So to watch your guys at those ages play, it just takes me back to when I was at that age. I'm sure when our players are at that age, it is a fun moment in time for them. But when it comes to the game itself and the X's and O's, we're all running the same plays. The dimensions may change. You know, as you know, that hash screws me up out there, how wide it is on the high school field. But to be around the guys, watch them work hard. Just how they were moving around yesterday, there was some hard stuff that they were doing. But then to see the plays, see the kids processing, watching their feet, it is so similar, but it is certainly fun to watch from that perspective.
Yeah. So you were a quarterback. We're going to talk about quarterbacks now. You've, in some capacity, been coaching quarterbacks for about 2 decades, right, in the NFL?
When you put it that way, yeah.
That's incredible because you're still only 43 years old.
Yeah.
A lot of people say it's the hardest position to play in sports. What makes it so hard? I mean, if you put it into, I mean, there's a million ways to answer that question, but if you could put it into layman's terms, playing quarterback in the NFL is so hard because...
Yeah, it's a really good question, Coach. I think the number one thing to me that makes it so difficult is you're processing information, and it's a lot of information. So I'm no computer expert, but they better have a strong Pentium chip in that brain to be able to get through all the things that they're looking at. And for the quarterback, we try to make it so as simple as you can. As the quarterback calls the play, walks to the line of scrimmage, you give him an order, a checklist to do all the things that you have to do, because you have to be, before you can make a play physically, which our guys are blessed with the ability to make these unbelievable physical plays, you have to go through the mental aspect of it, both before the snap and then post-snap. And the things that you're looking at for a quarterback as he breaks the huddle, first of all, he needs to confirm that his players are where they're supposed to be. Then he has to look at the defense, and when I say look at the defense, it's hard to look at 11 guys. So we'll break it down and we'll start, okay, look at the fronts. And when I say front, I'm talking about the defensive line, the linebackers, how they deploy, the safeties, whether they're down or back. And then that back end, those secondaries, the nickel potentially, the corners. Where are the safeties? Where's their width? Where's their depth? Are the corners pressed? Are they off? All those things are happening, and you're trying to compartmentalize it for the quarterback so that when he does get the ball in his hands, he's really keying defenders. And you can't key 11 of them again. You're keying this guy, and then if he does that, you're going to key this guy. And all of that is dependent on your players, your offensive players, being where they're supposed to be. And that's why you'll oftentimes hear coaches or players talk about, man, that guy's always where he's supposed to be. And as a quarterback, that's a great feeling because you're not watching your receiver run the route. You're expecting him to be somewhere. You're keying defenders. So there's just a lot of information, that mental game that's played from when they break the huddle to when that play ends. There are so many decisions, and they're little decisions. They're little bits of information that they're processing throughout the play. And you got to do that, call it 70 times a game.
Yeah, and about how much time do you have to do all that?
Not much.
Yeah,
I mean, you got that 40-second clock ticking. And as coaches, we can talk to the players in their helmet up till 15 seconds. And then at 15 seconds, it cuts off. So you're trying, you give the quarterback some room to call the play in the huddle. When you break the huddle, you maybe give them a reminder, hey, remember, we're checking out we're looking for the tightest technique, the tightest shade on this for your run check. Or, hey, remember, they love to bring corner blitz in this area of the field. And then he's getting under center, and then it cuts out, and he's then again surveying the entire defense and trying, when you survey that defense, we try to break it up for him. We talked about the fronts and then the linebackers and the DBs. It's kind of like remembering phone numbers. If I gave you a 10-digit phone number, it's hard to remember 10 digits in a row, but if you break it down, area code, 3 digits, 4 digits, now you got a chance. That's how we think about when we prepare the quarterbacks. Okay, here's your front, and we have a way to design our fronts over, we use a number system, whether it's an over front, meaning 3 technique to the front side, under front 3 technique being to the back side. So we give them a number system to break that down. We talk about some core coverage elements and core deployments from the safeties. So we try to put them in buckets, if you will, because it is hard. If I told you all those things that he needs to do and you didn't give him those little maybe tips, it's just there's not enough time. The 40 seconds is done.
It's fascinating. I've been doing some breakdowns of NFL film for the website, and the thing that I'm amazed at all the time when I look at the all 22 is defenses are almost never post-snap in the look that they give you pre-snap. At the high school level, I can rely most of the time on your eyes pre-snap. You can look out and you can see 2 safeties and you got a pretty good idea you're going to get covered 2. In the NFL, it's never, it seems like that. You know? The DCs are tricky. So how do you train your quarterback to adapt in the middle of a play?
And I'll concur. The coordinators in the NFL, the players in the NFL, those defenses, they make life hard on the offense. Once in a while, you'll run into a team that doesn't disguise very much, but I'd say that's rare. The norm is for a lot of disguise. So we try to study very hard during the week to give the quarterback tips. If the defensive ends in this technique, we really expect him to be moving inside. We expect the nickel to be coming off the edge. So there's so many little tips that you're trying to give him throughout the course of the game because you don't want the quarterback to be surprised and as much as you can. So you try to help him with little tips, but I can think back to over the years playing against those great Chicago Bears defenses with Urlacher and Lance Briggs and Peanut Tillman. They were a cover 2 defense, and really cover 2 went through the league there after Tampa won the Super Bowl with Monty Kiffin. So you saw Tampa 2. Tampa 2 had some disguise, but very little. It was, hey, we're going to play our defense. We know the plays that you're going to run against our coverage. We're going to be so good at stopping those plays. So cover 2 certainly had its run. I think now you're seeing a lot of shell coverage. When I say shell coverage, I'm talking about 2 high. And that 2 high can be quarters, it can be 2, it can be quarter, half to the field, it can be quarter, half to the boundary. Then that weak safety can drop in. So I'd say that's the biggest thing I was seeing, or the thing I was probably seeing the most. Then you get into some coordinators that it's an amoeba defense. Everybody's moving, particularly on 3rd down as you get into some of these complex blitz looks. That can be a very real challenge for quarterbacks and for coaches to figure out where those players are blitzing from on 3rd down. So there's tools that we on an offensive side have, there's tools that we on the defensive side have to make life hard on the quarterback. And again, it comes back to trying with the quarterback to be on the same page with your 11 guys, because the defense coordinators that we face in the NFL are outstanding.
You mentioned processing. Is that maybe the biggest reason why certain quarterbacks coming out of college succeed and others aren't able to kind of make it at the next level? I mean, I'm sure that there's a combination of ability and arm talent, all those things, but is there a single thing that sort of separates the successful college player in his transcendence to the NFL?
Yeah, it could be. It's really interesting. You know, I've been around 1,000 quarterbacks, and they're all so physically gifted to play in the NFL. It's unbelievable, the guys and what they can do, and their arm strength, accuracy, all that. But the ability to make quick decisions, the ability to see something and process. You don't get a take-home test in the NFL. These are pop quizzes that are coming at you every second. So there's plenty of guys that are highly intelligent, but when you need to think quickly, that's where it gets hard. I know I couldn't do it, but to watch our guys that can do it at that high level, it is truly amazing. Coming from college, the game is a little bit different. It does, and as you know, the game is evolving constantly. As you look at the college landscape to the pro landscape, I think there's a lot of things that are similar, and then there are some things that are different. So you're trying to, when it comes to evaluating college players and how they'll transition, a lot of times you're taking a guess. You're looking at it saying, okay, he played in this system. We may ask him to do the exact same thing. We may ask him to do something completely different. How can he do that? How will his transition go? And then when it comes back to the idea of processing information quickly, you really try to go look at as much as you can on their tape and see moments where the picture changed pre-snap or the picture changed post-snap. Or, okay, it looks like he has a 1-high, 2-high read. Was he on the correct side? And that's where we kind of become detectives, and you're saying, okay, I think he was probably taught to do it this way. He did it, that's great. He didn't, I wonder why. Okay, let's maybe at the combine or when we bring him in for a visit, let's ask him about that play. I want to hear his thought process. And sometimes you'll see video of those combine interviews, and everybody essentially does the same thing. You put the play on and talk me through your thought process. What were you thinking here? Well, I was keying this defender. We had thought all week that he was going to blitz and he didn't. That's good information for us to know, because as we're watching the tape, we don't know exactly what he's thinking. Now it takes us through how they're thinking about the game, how they're thinking about doing their job.
Do you think that, you said you're kind of making educated guesses, is there kind of a group think in a way about certain prospects? Like you look at a guy like Brock Purdy, who lasts to the last pick in the draft, or obviously the most famous example, Tom Brady, who falls to the 6th round. Is that sometimes when teams, I don't want to say miss, but when they value a guy a little bit less than what he turns out to be, is that just a product of that process? You looked at his college system and tape, and it just didn't feel like it was going to translate?
I just think there's so many variables when you're watching these players, and you're looking at them as prospects, and you're looking at height, weight, speed, and then you're looking at their background, and then you're looking at their leadership ability, particularly when you talk about the quarterback position. I think it's fascinating. You mentioned Tom Brady, the greatest player of all time. I mean, the best, right? And fell all the way in that draft. I wasn't around, but what were the scouts seeing? What were the coaches seeing that had him drop? Was it his ability to move? So were people overvaluing or undervaluing his ability to just make plays from the pocket? Potentially, yes. But then the next thing I would bring you to is these evaluations may be correct, and then the circumstance in which that player lands is perfectly suited for them. Again, I'll go to Brady. If he lands on a different team and maybe never gets an opportunity to play for whatever reason, he was a backup, the starter never got hurt. We're talking about the best player of all time, maybe not happening because he didn't get that opportunity, and then to get the opportunity that he did in an unbelievable system, great coaches, great players. That's where I think circumstance and the environment in which these players come into matters so much, and that's not really part of the evaluation. You're looking at how the player may do, but then where they land, who they're being coached by, what players are around. That, combined with obviously the player's skill and the player's ability off the field, that's what then determines their success or maybe lack thereof.
Speaking of circumstance, you dealt with something phenomenal. This is probably one of the big reasons why you're Coach of the Year again. I mean, you had to go through 4 or 5 different quarterbacks. So you won games with 4 different quarterbacks. I don't know what the history says, but I can't remember a circumstance where a coach won games in one season with 4 different quarterbacks. And like you and I were talking about the other day, they were 4 totally different guys. How much of a challenge was that for you and your staff to try to find the right game plan for each one of those guys, knowing that they had very different levels of experience and skill sets?
It's a challenge that you don't want to have. You want your starter to be healthy for 17 games plus. For us, it was in the moment, it was a tough challenge, but it's fun. I mean, that's for coaches. We don't want to be put in that position, but when we are, we want to go be able to make slight adjustments or maybe pivot in a different direction, because that's what we have to do to win that game. I think so much of what we do as coaches is we look at it on Monday. What do we have to do to win this game? We're not worried about the next game or the game previously. And then who are the players available? And that happens every Monday with our coaches meetings. We're in there and the trainer tells us, okay, this guy's unlikely to make it. This guy we'll see by Friday. So when it comes to the quarterback position, all you're trying to do is play to the strength of the quarterback. And our quarterbacks, everybody comes in different shapes and sizes, different backgrounds, and are good at a lot of things, and maybe not so great at this. So we try to just lean into the strengths of our players and mitigate weakness, which every single player in the NFL has, every coach has. So for us, it was the challenge of, all right, what can our guy do well, and let's lean into that. And then I think what it speaks to, and I give a ton of credit to our coaches, is you have to have a scheme, whether offense or defense, that's broad enough to move and in a moment's notice move to something that maybe you weren't planning on doing, but it's not totally outside the realm of your offense. We can't I don't think we could have put in a wishbone offense or a Delaware wing T in the moment, but we had enough offense where if you needed us to get into empty, our guys are used to doing that. If you need us to get under center and run hard play action, our guys are used to doing that. And it's not totally new things to our team. So having an offense that has breadth enough to lean into what either fits your players or gives the defense problems. Because when we talk about a game plan, it's that, okay, here's what we're good at, here's what our players are good at, here's what our quarterback's good at, here are the things that hurt them, and it's like, what's in the middle of that Venn diagram? What are the things that we feel like can attack their scheme, our guys can do, and that's where our game plan lies.
That's interesting. People love talking about scheme, One of the questions I get all the time is like, from other coaches, from parents, fans, what do you run? What do you run? And I always have a hard time answering that question because there are traditional systems throughout history. You mentioned the Delaware wing T. There are ones that swept their way through various levels of football, like the air raid, the West Coast offense, etc. It feels like, just like you were saying on the defensive side of the ball, it feels like offenses today are really kind of a mashup of a lot of the different systems, and that there's picking and choosing based upon the skill set of your players, etc. You said everybody runs the same scheme, so is the challenge now to take the various options that are out there to suit them to your available personnel?
Absolutely, and I think that's what we spend a lot of time talking about, the evolution of the game, the evolution of offensive football. And I haven't been in the league forever, but I go back to 2006, and we have some tape that goes back, maybe not all the way there, but I think our system goes back to 2010. But the point is, when you put on the tape, it looks like a different game back then. There's very, very little motion, and when there is motion, it's slow. It's not fast motion like we see now. Every defensive end is in a three-point stance. And everybody's in a four down. It's not as much of the odd fronts that maybe we saw. And it's seeing the quarterbacks under center more. You're seeing shotgun. The numbers are way, way, way higher than they were. So the game is evolving, and all these schemes, like you mentioned, are evolving. So I've been very, very fortunate to be in different schemes, if you will. I was in the West Coast system with Brad Childress and Darrell Bevel. I was in the Earhart system with Bill Musgrave, the digits or the number system with North Turner. Pat Shermer, who had a little bit of Chip Kelly influence when Pat was in Philadelphia and a West Coast background. John DiFilippo, who was in a bit of the Frank Reich, Andy Reid version of the Chiefs and Eagles, Doug Peterson. So I say all that to say I've seen a lot of offense. I got to work with Gary Kubiak for a year. Gary has his own version of the West Coast, if you will. Everybody runs the same plays, but the nuance is what separates you. When I say nuance, it's the coaching points. It's the little finer details of how you teach a route, or how you teach a run scheme, or how you teach the quarterback to read a certain play. Those are the things that really I focus on. And when we talk about putting our offense together, I'm sure there's elements of all those things I just mentioned. There's elements of all of them in what we do. The quarterback can be under center running play action that looks like a Gary Kubiak play. You can get in the gun and get into empty, and that may look like a completely different, maybe an Earhart system. You can get into drop back with fast motion, which is kind of the new wave of what we're seeing. So I think long and hard about the evolution of our game, because it is happening, and you don't want to get left behind. So you're constantly trying to think of how you can tinker with what you do. While saying all that, there are plays that have stood the test of time that everybody runs, and you're running them here at Ocean City High School where I'm watching you run them. Everybody's running different variations of those plays. To me, it's the nuance, it's the coaching point, how you're teaching the players, how you're teaching the quarterback to read those plays. That's where the devil lies in the details.
Interesting. I'm a history teacher, and I love that view of it all, because I always tell my students, history is not like these things that happened in the past that are dead and gone. It's all a continuum. It's a string of an unfolding story, each era which influences the next. And sort of the game's like that. All right, I'll get you out on this. So you mentioned plays. I remember Mike Leach one time saying that if he could only run one play, and you could only have one play in your playbook, what would it be? And he said it would be Fort Burns. And I'm not asking you to give away any secrets or anything, but if you had that, I know I'm putting on the spot, but if you had one play, say this is it. This is all we can run.
Yeah. Four verse is a good one because you know it's good versus all coverages. You know you're gonna have a check down of some sort. I'd probably get into empty. We ran a play that you and I have talked about. We've run it a lot over the years. It's coming from a New England. New England calls it, I believe, Hoss jerk. We run a version of that. For us, we put in our Heisman family, so Hoss and jerk. That's been a really good play for us over the years. You have pitches that can convert on the outside. You have seam routes on the inside, so it's four verticals-ish. I guess the difference from empty, you can take that number 3 player to the strong side. I think about Jarvis Landry over the years for us, putting him over the ball and letting him work against Mike linebackers or get open, if you will. It's a clear picture for the quarterback. It's to spread everybody out so he can kind of see maybe where the defense may be coming from. So it's a cousin of the four verts. Going back to history, there's definitely, it's intertwined. It can become four verts, but also has some other options on the outside and both inside as the receiver or tight end is working to get open.
Awesome. Coach, thank you so much.
Of course.
Man. It was an absolute pleasure. Episode 65 of the call sheet. I don't think I'm going to get a better one than this. Coach Kevin Stefanski. I'm Kevin Smith. Take care, everybody.